Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast, podcast number 194. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, November the 7th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County, and we're doing a Facebook Live as well. So if you can see me on Facebook, wonderful. The reason I do this is not so much to get my ugly mug on Facebook, but this allows the listeners to call in. It's the vehicle I use to turn this podcast into a semi-live show. It's live now. You can call in real time and discuss the topics. And then you can enjoy it later via the podcast. The phone number, 314-690-1909. That's 314-690-1909. Should be on the screen. Should be able to see that on the Facebook Live stream. So go ahead and call in. Topic for today. We're in the middle of an election. Actually, it's not officially been called as of 8:59 Central Standard Time. The election has not been called. However, by all indications, we're going to have a DNC president. The Biden-Harris ticket looks like it's won, and the Gray Falcon has called it. So if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. And if you can consider right now the open states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, and Nevada, Trump needs all of them to win. He's currently losing in 3 of the 4, a couple of them by fairly wide margins. And even if he does elect to file suit and wins in Arizona, even if he gets Arizona via a lawsuit, that's not enough for him to win. So it looks like this election's done. Looks like it's called. Looks like we're going to have a Biden-Harris presidency for the next 4 years. Now, before we get into our topic, I just want to give a little bit more commentary on this election. But the topic today is going to be UFOs. Of course, if we have an election, what else do we want to talk about? Of course, UFOs. I chose this topic because, well, I'm sick and tired of talking about politics. And really, there's nothing else to talk about. I don't want to hear about the cheating. I don't want to hear about we're all going to turn into a socialist country like Venezuela. That's not going to happen, folks. It's just not going to happen. That's hyperbole. It's time to take a breath, maybe back off, maybe talk about something that's not quite so serious, almost as serious, but not quite as serious. And that's UFOs. And not UFOs today, not the Tic Tac UFOs, but I'm talking about way back when, back in the early days of ufology, before they even called it ufology, back in the late 1940s, the true fathers of ufology, Donald Keel, Buck Nelson, Dr. Frankie Stranges, those guys were they set the table. They were the first, I would say, can we use the term pioneers? They were the first pioneers of ufology, the first pioneers of extraterrestrials, the first pioneers who dared to say we were being visited by beings from another planet. They were the first ones, and they were able to use television as a media to talk about this type of thing. So they were the first UFO celebrities, way before Ancient Aliens, way before Coast to Coast. You had these guys. And that's what we're going to talk about, okay? We're going to talk about those guys, okay? We don't want to talk so much about the election. I mean, again, that's a done deal. I will say one more thing about the election, and then I will pass on it. But just this, if you're very, very happy that Biden won, and you think, okay, now we're going to have a truly progressive agenda and get this country, get out the hammer and sickle and be where we need to be. If you think that, or if you think, well, that's it, we're going the way of Venezuela, this is going to be a socialist dictatorship, both of you are just wrong. And I'll tell you why. Mitch McConnell, who is still going to be the Senate Majority Leader, and Joe Biden are old buddies from way back when. In fact, Mitch McConnell was the only GOP senator to attend the funeral of Beau Biden, President-elect Biden's son, who passed away from brain cancer, his very much beloved son. No other GOP senator attended that funeral except for Mitch McConnell. They're buddies. They're friends. They are both old-time, old-school, tit-for-tat, quid pro quo negotiators. So, here's my prediction. Expect lots of negotiations to go on. Expect Biden to get his cabinet approved by the Senate if they're moderates, but in return, Biden's probably going to get some of his tax increases ran through the Senate. So think back in the days of Clinton Gingrich. Think back in the days of Reagan O'Neill. Maybe, just maybe, we're going to have something like that. Think about it. A little bit of talk about last week. We had call-ins people last week, but we had a board op problem. The board op didn't do his job properly. We had two people that called in actually last week. The board op didn't do his job properly, and he's been chastised for it. The board op is me, by the way. I didn't answer the phone properly and couldn't get the people onto the air. Think I know what I screwed up. Think I know what I did wrong. Think I can have it solved for this time. So, again, this podcast, this broadcast, like a radio broadcast, most podcasts have the on-air talent, which is me. They have a producer. They have a call screener. They have at least 3, sometimes 4 people running a show. This is me. I'm the talent. I'm running the camera. I'm running the board. I'm answering the phone calls, and I'm trying to keep the story on topic. So I'm trying to do all that. So if I screw up once in a while, please forgive me. Okay. That's number 1. Number 2, I don't know about you, and I can't speak for anybody but me, but in this horrible pandemic era, in this, what do I want to say? This tribal world that we have where everything's going to hell in a handbasket. And in my business in my day job is sales, and I make a living going across the country, across the world, meeting with people, shaking their hands, showing them my stuff, explaining how my stuff is better than what they have now, and then having them buy it. And I've been very successful at it. But the number one vehicle has always been my ability to go meet with them, look at them face to face, and get them to commit to buy my product. Can't do that anymore, okay? So my number one tool has been taken away from me. I will tell you this. I cannot remember a time when I have been busier with inquiries, people wanting to know more about my product, wanting to buy my stuff. I've never been busier. And I've approached my job differently. I've gone on to LinkedIn, emails, phone calls, just every other way but face-to-face. In other words, I found a way around, a workaround, if you would, and it's worked very, very well for me. My suggestion, if in your job you're having troubles because of the pandemic, because of the tribalism, because of the divisiveness that's going on in this country, for whatever reason, try another way. Do it differently. Because, friends, I'm here to tell you there is absolutely, positively nothing special about me. Nothing. And I would have to say that everybody listening to the sound of my voice is at least as smart as me. Trust me, it doesn't take much, okay? If you're at least as smart as me, I think you, too, can be successful. Try it. Okay, that's enough. Let's talk about UFOs. The history of UFOs. What's going on with UFOs? They're in the news nowadays. The government has finally decided that, you know what, maybe UFOs are real, which was the title of a book a long, long time ago, UFOs Are Real. But you remember back July 2020 of this year, the New York Times came out with an article. In fact, here's the headline on the article. No longer in the shadows, Pentagon UFO unit will make some findings public. And what they've done, according to the article, now remember, this is not George Norrie's Coast to Coast. This is not Whitley Strieber. This is not Jimmy Church. This is not Ancient Aliens. This is not George Norrie. This, friends, is the New York Times. Supposedly one of the most reliable news sources in the country, perhaps the world. But they have reported, I'm going to read it verbatim, despite Pentagon statements that once disbanded a once covert program to investigate unidentified flying objects, the effort remains underway, renamed and tucked inside the Office of Naval Intelligence, where officials continue to study mystifying encounters between military pilots and unidentified aerial vehicles. Remember that word, unidentified aerial vehicles. Now, the Pentagon officials will not discuss the program, which is not classified, but it does deal with classified matters. In other words, it appeared last month in a Senate subcommittee, and this was June, because this article was written in July, appeared last month in a Senate committee report outlining spending on the nation's intelligence agencies for the coming year. The report said that the program, called Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, is used to standardize collection and reporting on sightings of unexplained aerial vehicles and was to report on at least some findings to the public within 180 days of passage of the Intelligence Authorization Act. Now, they are now calling them Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. Now, here's the question. What is the difference between UFO, unidentified flying objects, and UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon? Actually nothing, but actually something. Because people who say UFOs are real, like me, they are the tinfoil hat wearing wackos, okay? But if you were a believer in unidentified aerial phenomenon now, that's something worth looking at. That's something worth considering. And they're really just different, the same thing. They're absolutely the same thing. Okay? And they've just rebranded is what they've done. Now, who is an official that said money needs to be spent on this kind of stuff? Remember a guy named Harry Reid, the old Senate Majority Leader? That's correct. Harry Reid was in charge of a program and wanted the United States government to put more and more money into UFO investigations. Harry Reid. Now, two things to remember about Harry Reid. First of all, he was a U.S. Senator from Nevada. He was born in Searchlight, Nevada, a small town right smack dab in the middle of the desert. Now, what does that mean, right smack dab in the middle of the desert? Well, perhaps Harry Reid saw some things in his youth and his young adulthood that maybe stuck in his craw and kind of influenced him throughout his life. Maybe, just maybe, that's why Harry Reid pushed it, okay? Now, Senator Marco Rubio, he's a Florida Republican. He is currently the acting chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, okay? U.S. Senator in charge of that committee. He told a CBS affiliate in Miami back in July that he was primarily concerned about reports of unidentified aircraft over military bases, United States military bases, and that it was his government's interest to find out who was responsible. Okay? Now, he expressed concerns that China, Russia, or some other adversary had made some technological leap that allowed them to conduct this sort of activity. Translation. We're seeing things out there that we don't know what they are. They're not ours. Okay? Whose are they? China, Russia, or another adversary? Now, who would that other adversary be besides China and Russia? You think it can be Lesotho? Could it be Luxembourg? Could it be Burma? No, I don't think so. Probably not another country, but probably just some other source, someplace that maybe, just maybe, has something to do with something, okay? Now, this is worth looking into because back in 2017, the New York Times disclosed the existence of a predecessor unit to this current investigation. It was called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, okay? It had a budget of $22 million, and that budgeting lasted until 2012.